you come probably in a little bit later.
This province. As a group, they should be going after the government. It's just driving up inflation.
or partial from the day issue the people watching on Zoom.
It should be working now, but when I unmuted it, we were getting feedback and now we're not. So I think it's corrected itself. So sorry to interrupt, Anne. Please carry on.
I can start again. I can keep on going.
Just keep going, yeah.
A situation of conflict of interest started from the day the Snuck Cove sewage plant was implemented to accommodate the Case Hill development and managed by the Snuck Cove Sewer Management Committee. We're asking for an external independent review and audit of the Snuck Cove sewer plant management with recommendations to put to a referendum on October 15, 2022 municipal election. We expect that council reject any proposal bylaw changes and obtain external independent advice on how to restore the financing difficulties and allow islanders to vote their approval of funding this significant expenditure on the referendum on October 15. Respectfully yours.
Thank you very much, Anne.
That's all.
All right. Okay, so we'll move on to the consent agenda. Does anybody have anything there that they would like some more clarification on? That sort of thing. Nothing much more. I don't see any of the recommendations. Council approve the items outlined in the April 11, 2022 consent agenda. We will adopt that by consensus. And we will move on to delegations. Oh, okay, thank you. And we're going to go right down into correspondence. Long Island Community Foundation changes to the Neighborhood Small Grants Program. Who's going to speak to that?
I can speak to it actually.
Well, that'd be good. Excellent. Thank you.
Okay. Council and the board of the Community Foundation had an agreement whereby the Community Foundation would provide council with the money to disperse to neighborhood small grants programs. So they were typically organizations that were not constituted as charities or had charitable numbers, and they were organizations that were something that were valuable to the Community Foundation, but they couldn't fund them directly. So they would provide the funding to the municipality, and the municipality has a very unique position as a qualified donor in that we can accept grants from public foundations. Public foundations can grant to a municipality, and then we're not constrained by those same CRA requirements that we could grant directly to these smaller groups, interest groups that don't have that charitable status. So it's a very cool partnership, and it's a way to really activate money in our community. When I started working here, I got the letter from the Community Foundation, and I phoned their administrator. I said, "Oh, it's so great. I'm glad we're doing this, but we can't just take the money and I can't just write checks to these groups. I just have to put them on a council agenda and get council to acknowledge and approve them, and then I can write the checks. I think they took a second look at their practice, and they also were consulting with the West Vancouver Community Foundation, and apparently they found an alternative way to do it that didn't have to go through council. So we had the chair of the foundation, Holly, and myself and Joanne Gassman, another board member. We had a very productive conversation, and it wasn't negative in any way. They just said, "Oh, this is actually way more streamlined for us, and then it doesn't have to go to council." And so instead, you did commit the $1,500 to support that program, because it is a program that is administered through the Vancouver Foundation, and it does require multi-partners to contribute to this grant program. Council will still be providing their $1,500 grant to the Community Foundation, and they're going to look after the grant. Exactly.
Yeah.
So everybody clear on that?
Can we read it out?
Sure, yeah, please.
So whereas council has received a request from Bowen Island Community Foundation to change its partnership agreement with Bowen Island Municipality for administering the Foundation Neighborhood Small Grants Program, therefore be it resolved that council directs staff to dissolve the current memorandum of understanding between them and Bowen Island Community Foundation, Council Resolution 22-71, and further be it resolved that council reaffirm its commitment to contribute $1,500 to the program for 2022. So I'll move that.
Okay, thanks, Rob. Second. Okay, that's Allison's fine. And further discussion on that? Straightforward, Allison?
Clarifying question. Council Resolution 22-71 is this resolution we're making. You're not referring to the old one.
That was my question as well.
So 2271 is the council resolution that directed staff to engage with the memorandum of understanding.
So I thought 20, so it was back in 20, I thought
It wasn't
22 was of the year.
It does.
Did we do that already this year?
71 resolutions, 77 resolutions, 71? Yes, absolutely.
Wow.
Okay. We're in the
We're
hundreds.
almost halfway through the.
So yeah, that was the resolution that was adopted by council that will rescind, but we're still committing to that 1,500 matching funds. Thanks.
Okay, last question. All in favor? Aye. Okay, thank you. Move on to reports of committees, and commissions. 10.1. Kristen Watson, Chief Financial Officer, read the minutes and recommendations of Snoqualmie Sewer Local Management Committee meeting held March 3rd and 31st of 2022. Kristen?
Well, I think there might be a little bit of confusion here. The recommendation before you is speaking to some requests that were made at a meeting of the Snoqualmie Sewer Committee on March 3rd, where Councillor Morris indicated that that these potential amendments, which are just housekeeping amendments to amend the bylaw to to change the committee from a local management committee to an advisory committee, and then to increase the number of members from 3 to up to 5. So these, I am aware that people are interested in a different proposed amendment to the Snoqualmie Sewer Local Management Committee, the establishment bylaw, but I don't think this is the proposed amendment that most people are willing or writing to know about. But I could answer any questions about that one if anybody has any.
And what about the other recommendations? Sorry.
Well, let's just do mine.
Okay.
And the other recommendation that council directs staff to include the draft Snoqualmie Sewer System 2022 to 2026 budget as presented at its March 31st committee meeting in the Bowen Island Municipality 5-year financial plan. So that shows that a new parcel tax will be imposed on the residents of Snoqualmie for $664 per year, as well as an increase to their user rates over the next 7 years in order to collect $718,000 from the users in Snugco and take that money and contribute it to the accumulated operating surplus fund of the municipality.
All right.
So what is the fate of the first recommendation on this page?
Yeah. So,
I'd like to move, as somebody who was on the Snug Cove Sewer Management Committee in the previous term, I support these recommendations. Changing the name to an advisory committee, I think is appropriate, and increase the membership up to 5, sounds good.
what is it now?
3,
And,
one of which is a counselor.
yeah,
Will be removed.
it's small, and it was rare that there would be a regular homeowner represented there. And so this gives more opportunity for diverse people to sit on this Snug Sewer Advisory Committee, which I think would be helpful.
And why are we down to only 2 members at the current time? Does anybody know?
Rondi resigned. Well, it was 4 members, 3 of which were business owners or property owners in the district,
Yeah.
and Rondi just resigned. So
Okay,
that's why-
that's how we got that.
And the bylaws will also be changed, so the council person will be a liaison, not a voting member.
And that'll make it easier for votes to be counted if it's up to 5. It'll just possibly, if you get enough people, be easier to tell if something passes. So I'd like to move the motion that the council directs staff to amend you're on the sheet.
Yeah.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second that.
All right, any further discussion on this? Okay, Maureen.
I'm not sure what you were saying when you were in the discussion, that this was not what people were.
There is a second proposed amendment. It's not part of this agenda.
Right.
And that is to accomplish 2 things. One is to remove the word solely from the method of collection of funds from.
That's not included in this bylaw.
And the second is to establish a mechanism for council to signal to the community that a project is extremely significant, and that in order to access funds contributed from the wider community, the council would have to make a public resolution and publish that resolution to communicate their intent in advance of making or agreeing to any type of funding. I think it is important that people be aware that there is no additional parcel taxes or taxation collected from people outside of the sewer district. Council has decided to use reserve funding from general reserves collected outside of the district, but not to tax people. So I think it was important to make that point clear.
So if I could just belabor the point to confirm, what we have in front of us are these 2 small adjustments to the name of the committee and to the number of members, and that's all that's being dealt with at this meeting. The issue of the language of solely and the island-wide significance is being dealt with at another time.
Yes, it will come forward with a report based on the feedback requested from the finance committee and the Snugco Sewer Committee.
Okay, thank you, because that I don't think was clear.
So can I just
Thanks,
add to
Mark.
that, the bylaw that establishes the fees and everything and has the word solely in it is not bylaw number 10. There's a totally different bylaw for the fees and structure, so.
I think for the public, can I assume they're
No, thank
interested
you.
in watching, just really important to be aware of that's not being dealt with.
Given the attention it's received.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, this is.
Yeah, so just, great to have some more people, because 1 counselor, 2 people, that's, a great thing, and I agree with the advisory role. I guess one of my comments would be that I want to make sure that we get enough residential residents on this advisory board, because it's going to be very easy for a number of business owners to, hey, I'll commit to that. It's, but I want to make sure that there is that residential input, because I think they're paying the bulk of the cost probably if you divided it out. So I don't know if that's something I don't think we traditionally put that in.
Put that in the end.
We make the decision and ultimately.
Ultimately, we're going to make the decision on who we add in there. So, yeah, so I think that's fine.
I think there, as a result of this is a recorded conversation.
Yes.
The definite onus and desire is that this is a broadly based committee of 5 representing the area, not just business owners. And I am sure, speaking to them, that they would wish the same thing.
So,
I'm absolutely confident.
I think they would.
Fine, Michael, thank you. So any further discussion? If not, I'll ask a question. All in favor on that one? Thank you. Okay. Now, the other one is interesting.
Well, this happened with all the water systems too, but this is the only one that's made it forward because I think it's the only set of minutes that got done. We don't have all the water systems passed motions as well to support the bylaws, so I'm not sure.
But is that going to be a current? Is it going to be current? We were just talking about the finances in the last meeting, and so how could this be related to that?
Because all the local service areas were all presented with their budget separately.
Oh, I see.
All
Okay.
passed. We had the week from whatever last week of water committee meetings and sewer committee meetings just to discuss the budgets. So they all passed similar resolutions, and this is the only one that's made it forward to
Oh, I
the
see.
council resolution.
And
Can we,
So I would move the council direct staff to approve the draft Nut Cove sewer system 2022 to 2026 budget is presented at its March 31, 2022 committee meeting in the Mona Island Municipality 2022 to 2026 5-year financial.
Please, second.
yes, that's right. No, I will.
Go ahead.
I think of this committee as an advisory committee. So I see that this motion, and I welcome it, that's great. They're supporting the idea of the way the budget was described by our chief financial officer, of the reserves being used for part of the costs, and $664 per year as a parcel tax, and then the user fees based on the water tax, on the water costs, right?
Yes.
Water bills.
yes,
Yeah, so that means they generally support the idea, but I don't know that I'm ready yet to direct staff to include this water system budget as presented to the Snug Cove Sewer Advisory Committee. I think we might be making some changes. So I would like to propose that this recommendation, if this fails, I would like to suggest that council receive the recommendation from the Snug Cove Sewer Advisory Committee.
Okay, well, let's see how it goes. Anybody else have a comment?
Okay, so this isn't just their operating budget, is it? It also includes that line that includes the transfer.
it includes all money in and all money out, so.
Yeah, so at least it's supports paying for some of it. Doesn't mean we can't change it to make it all of it. Okay.
I think there's enough confusion on this that I'm not really happy with. Maureen, were you going to say something?
The budget that we just spent time with before this meeting, does it include these figures?
It does, yeah.
So we have seen it.
It's true.
And in fact,
Now thinking about it, I'm going, okay, that as long as that's true, which I wasn't quite clear on. Thank you for confirming that, because then it is part of the draft.
Yes.
It's not
actually
It's only
quite-
part of the draft.
It's quite clear in the documentation. It's quite clear in
Yeah, I saw it in there.
documentation
Sure. Okay,
that
thank you.
there's 1 million coming in from capital renewal reserve, 640 coming in from accumulated surplus, and then $1.6 million capital expenditure all within the sewer fund. And then it's quite clear that there's $102,000 going from the sewer fund to accumulated surplus in that year, and that will continue for the following 6 years.
Yeah.
Thank you. No, now I'm reading it a little more. just struck me a little bit funny, but now I can see it's about the draft budget we just
Draft.
talked about and that we're gonna ask for public consultation about, so I'm fine.
Yeah, I don't know how it has to be done, but, okay, I'll ask a question and all in favor.
Well, yeah, because I suddenly realized it had all that other stuff in it.
Okay. Yeah, well,
Sorry, just to confirm, Council Morris is opposed?
yes,
I mean, it's hard because I want to get the other, the 700, but I would like to get the whole thing.
all right. Okay, so we're gonna move on to new business then, introduction and approval of the island plan 2022, Mayor Ender. Okay, well, we've all seen the draft of the island plan 2022. I think it was extraordinarily well done, and I thank everybody that was involved with that, probably Maureen for sure, and a few others. It was a job well done. What I liked about it is there was a lot of continuing there. There wasn't a lot of new projects. And I think we'll just try to, the ones that are underway and try to get them completed. And for the end of the year, or at least the end of the term. And we'll see how things go. I think it's a great production and I thank everybody for that. Any other comments? No? All right. So the recommendation is the council approve the island plan 2022 as included in the April 11th, 2022 regular council agenda. That Rob on the second. And if there's any further discussion, I'll ask a question. All in favor? Aye. Thank you.
So it's going to be posted on the website and
Yeah.
a news announcement made.
Absolutely.
There's one little typo in there, but I should look at that. Okay, so 11.2, 2022 UBCM convention meeting requests. Liam Edwards, Chief Administration Officer. Did we manage to get Liam back?
Yep. Hi, folks.
Oh, there it is. Good.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor.
Okay.
And I must say, I apologize that I'm not there this evening. I really would like to have been at the first all in-person council meeting in over 2 years, really. So, but I'm with you in spirit and watching all the way. So, yeah, I just wanted to have council turn their minds to the 2022 UBCM convention meeting and start to consider which ministers and agencies that you may want to meet with in this coming year, and so that we can be ready to submit requests for meetings that'll come in the summer, early summer. Just as a reminder, the report was UBCM highlights was included in the agenda, which identified that we met with 6 ministers last year and 2 Crown agencies, and they were very productive meetings. And so not looking for recommendations or answers this evening, rather to just bring it to everyone's attention. And in the next couple of meetings, we'll circle back and try to solidify which ministers and agencies that would want to meet with. So any questions or comments on that regard?
I would just say the sooner the better, the faster that we can make a decision and get the request in.
We have to wait for them to ask us to submit.
Yeah, I know, but we gotta be ready to go when they do, because they fill up. That's all. They have in the past anyway. All right, so the recommendation is that council approve, I don't know. There's no recommendation.
Yeah.
That's a great idea. Thanks, Liam. Okay, so we're gonna go right into 11.3, which is back to you, Liam, for the CAO update.
Okay, thank you. And so I don't have an extensive update for you this evening. Just really wanted to highlight the amount of energy and effort that's being put into the budget, and wanted to extend my appreciation to Kristen Watson for her excellent work in short time and having to pick up the ball when we're really already quite far into the game. And so I think that Kristen's only been with us not even quite 2 months, and I think she's been doing a brilliant job. And we're trying to do the best that we can to also make sure that we're getting good engagement, and I'm glad that we're moving to the public realm now with the budget, and we're going to also be focused on getting everything completed before the legislative requirements in May. And so just a kudos to Kristen, as well as to the other department leads who are all juggling many complex files, and their contributions to the budget process too. And that's all for me this evening.
All right, thank you, Liam. Let's on to 11.4, which we will put on hold. David Hawking is not with us. Update to Council on Island Trust business. Island Trust Municipal Trustees Fast and Kale.
I think it's your time to go first.
Is it? Well, that's absolutely fine. Okay, one thing to report is that last week, the Trust Programs Committee met. And it is a Trust Programs Committee that have been working on the revised Islands Trust Plan. That is their policy statement is equivalent to there is. So this document is significant because we fall underneath it. Obviously, a lot of concerns and conversations have been raised throughout the islands, and trying to get the message out about a policy plan. It's not a sort of subject that immediately captures people's attention. To be honest, it's really rather hard to get anybody terribly excited about. Although it is significant, it's important. The most important thing that was agreed at the meeting on Friday is this. Firstly, that it is the responsibility of the Trust Programs Committee, which I've been a part, to actually collate all the information received when the cut-off period is towards the end of April, and get that information together and review it. And one thing the chair made very clear was that it is not, that work is not going to be done for the June meeting of trustees. And I frankly am pleased and totally relieved. We need to go back to this document, actually have a meeting rather the same as the meeting here, real people around the table, face to face, and go through this document again and take time to review all the information we've received. So we were really pleased that it seemed to reach a sort of pretty unanimous agreement amongst the group, and we had a member of the executive there as part of this. And then it's then going to go forward, possibly to the September meeting of trustees. So I think at last we've got parameters where a reasonable sense of amount of time is going to be taken, whatever reasonable ends up by being. And it's not going to be a rush process. And it's one that the Trust Programs Committee is adamant that it's going to take responsibility for, to report back to the Trust Council, that group of 26 trustees. So that was probably the greatest breakthrough of that meeting. It's going to take time to do this, and it will go step by step sequentially, and we will complete our mandate on this project as originally agreed. I think I've been at it now for 2 to 3 years, so be it. It's not going to be a quick process, nor should it. So I'm pleased to report that.
Okay. All right. Yes, it started. We had our first Bowen meeting on the Trust Policy Statement Update project back in September 2019. So I would hardly call it rushed.
No.
But anyway, I just wanted to report quickly in 12.6 in your info items is a letter sent by the Islands Trust to the federal government about asking them to reduce pollution in the Salish Sea around Bowen and the other islands, because right now the big ships have to decrease the amount of air pollution that would have normally come out of their exhaust systems. Instead, they're using these things called scrubbers, and it goes down into the sea. So it's just moving the pollution from the air down into the water. And we're asking for better protection of the Sailor Sea and the environment around Bowen Island and the other islands. 12.7, if you look at that, that's the highlights from the last Trust Council meeting provided there, so you can catch up, and the links to some of these projects are in there, so you can see, you can easily get to them. That's in 12.7. And then I just wanted to mention, I chaired the Gambier Local Trust Committee meeting last week. And then I went to the Association of Vancouver Island and Coastal Communities Convention. So this is like the Lower Mainland Local Government Association, except it's other coastal communities, often ferry dependent, often smaller. So that was really useful, and I can go through a feature, some of the things I took away from that if people are interested. But I'll leave it up to you, Chair. I just got a quick list right there. And then I wanted to mention, I've got executive committee Wednesday morning, and anybody can tune into that, watch it on live stream if you're interested. And the Stewardship Awards nominations are due in a few days that the nominations close. So that's the Community Stewardship Awards, where we encourage and acknowledge people who've made a big difference to conservation and the quality of island life. And if you want to hear about
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
It's Cole's notes.
Yeah, I just thought people might be interested. I went on the zero waste tour in Victoria. So they, it was fascinating, but there wasn't a composting plant, wasn't on the list. So I didn't go to that. I don't have anything specific to report, but there was an unbuilders. So they're salvaging the old growth Douglas fir out of old commercial buildings, especially. And they're saving money, and it's really great wood. So the carbon isn't going into the atmosphere, and they don't have to pay to go to the dump. So I just wanted to flag, I've got a brochure, or I can send anybody a link who's interested in that. There was a food waste reduction and redistribution center that I went to. It was fascinating. And they had these great garbage bins on the main street, and they're doing these very cool things, measuring how the design matters when people are walking towards them, whether people put the garbage in the right hole. And they've got have a research project, they've got little cameras inside them so they can actually see what's going in and when. So that the garbage truck only has to go there when it's supposed to be full.
Oh, fabulous.
So they're planning to save money. I just thought I'd bring that to your attention. I met with Kirsten Ennemark of Shaw.
Yes.
She had flagged that she was going to be there if anybody was going, and I said, yes, I'll be there. So she talked about the water treatment plant on Grafton Lake and the possibility of working with BC Hydro. Why couldn't we put the line on their poles? So I was going to suggest we meet with BC Hydro at UBCM and ask some questions about that if staff think that that's useful. That was just based on her answers to some of the questions I asked. I think, the Premier spoke, Premier John Horgan. He said there's more grants coming from educational activities to help people steward their resources better in their communities. Emergency Act updates, talking about the new normal with heat domes and atmospheric rivers and floods and wildfire. Shoreline stewardship. I'll skip some of these. Josie Osborne, who was our minister and is now the Minister of Land and Water and Resource Stewardship and responsible for fisheries. She spoke, said lots of good words that are similar to the ones in our official community plan, all around a lot about stewardship and also a coming coastal marine strategy, which BC doesn't have, but the rest of Canada has. Islands Trust resolutions passed. We had submitted two to the AVICC, one about funding for affordable housing coming to smaller rural communities, and one about something that will come to me in a minute, also relevant, and that will be going to UBCM. Then with the package, they were all referred. I can't find it. Sorry about that. I'll bring it to the next one. And I was part of a climate leadership workshop, so that was fascinating. And that's it. I brought back lots of good ideas that people say hello to Bowen Island. There's lots of communities like us, and
Yes.
it was good to feel like we're all
Back together. Yes.
and in the same boat in a way, all dealing with these similar problems, lots of infrastructure challenges.
Yeah, that's true. Very true. Okay, so we'll move on to update the Council on Metro Vancouver Regional Parks Committee meetings. Councilor Nichols.
Actually, Councillor Hawking has cropped up on the Zoom.
Oh, we did. Okay, we'll go back to him if he doesn't mind.
Oh, he's waving his hand and fluttering away.
Yeah, boy, is he ever waiting. David, go ahead if you can hear me.
Yeah, thanks, Gary. First, I apologize for missing the meeting, not feeling very well for everybody there, but I would like to give this Metro Vancouver report. I've been to several committees, but one of them that affects us in some ways is the Electoral Area A Committee. There was a really interesting presentation by a couple of scientists who were looking at the steep slopes, on the North Shore there between, straight across the water from us, from going north from Horseshoe Bay, but also at Pitt Lake and Indian Arm. But obviously the one from Lions Bay to Horseshoe Bay is where there's a whole lot of people. What they did is the phase one of this report was just looking at the steep slopes and understanding which ones would be more susceptible to landslides, mudslides as a result of climate change. And phase two will be doing the detailed assessment, but one of the graphs that they presented was really quite astonishing. And it was looking at atmospheric rivers. And because warmer air can hold more moisture, and because a warmer atmosphere has got more energy in it, they expect far more atmospheric rivers, but not that they would just last 2 days, like the ones that did all the flooding just a few months ago, but they would last 4 to 5 days. So for looking at the steep slopes across the water, there's certainly concern there for the folks who live there and the highway. But I know on Bowen, we've looked at our own steep slopes and we've put off that work a little bit, but with the kinds of weather that we're expecting, I think we'll need to be looking at that in the next council. Also, at the Metro Vancouver, some councillors were at the Council of Councils meeting and some of these things were covered there, but Metro Vancouver 2050, the regional growth strategy, that has gone to first and second reading. There's still more work that needs to be done with all the municipalities have to approve it. There's a push to, I was involved in a push to strengthen some of its actions around climate change. Some of that has been done, but there will probably be a parallel process to strengthen it with the next board. It's just looking at the kinds of things that we're expecting to see from both the weather perspective and the kind of strategies are needed to reduce emissions. I think we can expect that. I know on Bowen we're going to be looking at an OCP update in the next council. I think climate change is going to have to be a serious focus of that, because it's happening all around us. Everybody else is recognizing serious changes are coming, and this means changes to their OCPs. Finally, I was at a Climate Action Committee meeting a couple of days ago, and the roadmaps, those are the strategic plans for how to address climate change. Two more are out for consultation. The roadmap on energy, that's how to decarbonize the energy system to zero by 2050. And also on nature and ecosystems, which is interesting because that applies a fair bit to Bowen. Even though the regional growth strategy doesn't apply to Bowen, the nature and ecosystem section has a lot of the things that are in the regional growth strategy, and those will apply to Bowen. A lot around greenways, greening the greenways, creating greater connections, and preserving green space, obviously. So those are some of the committees that I've been at, and I just wanted to pass that on to everybody. That's it from me. Thanks, Gary.
Thank you very much, David. Any questions there for David? Thank you, David. Hope you're feeling better.
Yeah, thanks, Gary. Yeah.
All right. And we'll go to the update to Council and Translink Mayor's Council meetings. Councilor. Oh, sorry, Maureen. Yeah, sorry.
One thing that David didn't mention is that 3 of us went to the Council of Council.
Well, he did say 3 of us were there.
Oh, you did, yeah. Oh, well, there were a couple of things at that meeting that I thought were particularly interesting, especially around the liquid waste and the extent to which much larger municipalities are having difficulties with their sewer systems and have had overflows of their sanitary sewage systems in places like Parkland, Bylaw, and so forth. So it's kind of across the board, as David was saying, and it is largely being attributed to the two factors of aging infrastructure and to the impacts of climate change. One of the things that was brought up in the discussion was the need for education of sewer users. And the majority of council went and visited our sewer system. This was my field trip for the last 2 weeks. It's the sewer system.
And we're pretty into it.
I mean, it's when you actually see how things are held together. And in that discussion, there were echoes of the same kinds of points. So that, for example, given the quality of the water that we have here, it's a quantity of soap will result in a whole lot more soapy water than if you're in the prairies. So just a bit of education around the use of cleansing products might be helpful. And
laundry products and dishwasher products. So
yeah. And Dewey had a number of colorful stories about the things that find their way into the Snug Cove sewer system that really ought not to find their way into the Snug Cove sewer system. So I'm hoping one of the things that will come out of that visit is that there will be a bit of public education around that. I mean, we all know the sensible stuff, but you know, the impact of getting a front loading washer versus a top loading washer, people might not be aware of that kind of thing. And then on my actual portfolio, the Parks Committee, I understand that there were a couple of reps from Parks who came and spoke with our Parks, Trails and Greenways committee a couple of days ago, I guess it was. And just a reminder that Metro Parks is doing an update of its parks plan, and the invitation is out there still. If you just go to metrovancouver.org, you'll find a link for feedback on the parks plan. They've changed the goals of the parks plan from 2 goals to 5 goals. I won't go into each of them, but it's sort of expanded a little bit, updated. And they're hoping to bring that parks plan to committee in July for adoption by the board at the end of the year. And there was quite a lot towards the end of the councils on TransLink. So I'll turn it over to Councillor Morris.
I found the bit, and because it's pertinent, the other Islands Trust resolution that passed at Association of Vancouver Island and Coastal Communities was that the province support climate risk and vulnerability assessments to communities that are updating their official community plans. Because it's hard to find a budget or the expertise sometimes to do those. So that will also go to Union of BC municipalities, and we'll see how everybody votes. And yeah, I just wanted to report that. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you. Maureen, you're finished. Sorry about that. And okay, back to you, Allison.
yeah. So the presentation at the Council of Councils was sort of the kickoff of the consultation on Transportation 2050 and also the next investment plan. We have to tell the province every 5 years what the major money is going to be spent on besides just day-to-day operations. And because of COVID, that's been delayed. So that's basically going out now, and it's more of a so that's going out for consultation at the same time. And if for going forward is to how to implement T2050. So hopefully everybody found after the last meeting, I raised the elected officials briefings, and there's 2 of them. And some of you have signed up for those. I think there's one on the 16th and one on the 19th. Steve Vanagas would have sent you an email.
Yep.
So hopefully everybody's signed up for those. And if anybody wants to have a meeting and get together and talk about the plan afterwards, so that I've got all the comments to take back, that would be fine too.
Okay,
Or just feed me your comments. But I think there's a survey up too, so that will be launched after the elected officials briefing, so a week after this.
All right, thanks, Allison. And on that, we will 11.8 is to move to a closed meeting. The recommendation is council move to a closed meeting immediately following the regular council meeting to discuss things pursuant to section 90, subsection 1I of the community charter. And that we'll move to the next page. And I don't know, is Alex on board? Can you tell her?
It's question period.
Question period, sorry.
we have two audience members, I don't know whether they're.
Yeah, I don't know. Any questions? Oh, sure.
Checking it out. This is the fastest one ever, so. They usually be here till March. We got all the.
I know that Richard was wanting to speak, but I don't see him here. I know he did email saying.
I thought I saw his name.
It was kept coming on, but
Yeah, he said the Zoom would work on his end, so I'm not sure. Yeah.
and I don't see Alex piping up here, so that puts an end to it. So we will adjourn this meeting very early. And thank you, everybody. We will take a 10-minute, 5, 10, 10.
Seven.
Just gonna go heat up another piece of pizza.